Hey there! I thought what we would do today is a very short talk part to this video. I'm not sure if this is of interest to anyone, but I was kind of curious, so I more or less wanted to record this video for myself, and I thought maybe other people would be interested. There's a lot of interest in bigger nibs right now, the bigger the better, and I thought what I would do is a fairly quick video where I show you a couple of different number 8 nibs. There are bigger nibs out there. Magna Carta makes the really nice number 10, and well, it's not quite this big, but I mean number 10 nib. I've reviewed it. I didn't want to include it to keep things a little uniform, because they also make a really nice steel number 8 nib. I kind of wanted to focus on Bock. So I will show you some gold Bock nibs, titanium Bock nibs. I'll talk about my experiences with them, but it would be extremely dry to do that just like this. So I will tilt the camera down and do writing samples with different nibs. Hopefully that is interesting. So if you're considering one of those nibs, what's the difference between 18 and 14K in writing experience, that sort of stuff. Let's do that, hoping that this is useful and interesting. You never know. Let's get started. Okay, want some tea? Anyway, let's look at some pens. So I have selected pens with Bock number 8 nibs. I have for you Delta Roma Imperiale. This was a larger pen made by original Delta. The demo, this finish was exclusive to Airline International. I really want to emphasize this is not a review of the pens, right? I just want to talk about the nibs, and also these pens have different inks in them. I know that's terrible for comparison. It's not experimental design in a proper way, but here we go. I know the pens very well, so I'll talk you through it. Here we have a classic pens LB5, not with the nib you would expect, because it's a sailor nib and this is not. That has an 18 karat Bock nib on it. I'll get to that. Then we have here a pen William Shakur made for me. This is my Great Exposition based on the Conrad Stewart Great Exhibition. This has a titanium number 8 nib on it. Here we have a Lambrou Pens LB5, also with a titanium nib. I just want to make a point about titanium nibs. So not the nib it comes with, not the nib it comes with, but again, it's not a review of the pens. It's not really a review of the nibs, it's an overview of the different nibs. And then I have a bonus pen for you that I just want to show you just for the fun of it, but we'll get there when we get there. Give me 1 second while I put these away. And then we're going to do some writing. So let's start, sort of build this up. See if I can zoom in just a little bit. You notice I had a bit of a hard start right there. Let's see how this goes. Here we have 14K. They're all number 8, so I'm going to write down number 8. This happened to be on Delta, but it is a Bock nib. The ink here is Waterman Serenity, which is a very nice ink, and I really like it in this pen. This is a fantastic nib, and I should indicate the grade, obviously. This is a fine. What I absolutely love about this nib is that it is very smooth, and especially for a fine, I find it very impressive how smooth this is, because you feel almost no feedback as you write. It's also relatively wet, again, especially for a fine nib. Works really well. Now, I'm going to caution against using these nibs in a way that gives you line variation, pushing down on them. In this case, the nib is fairly stiff. Be extremely careful when you do this. These are not meant as flex nibs. They're also not easy to, I mean, they're not cheap to replace. So it's a fairly stiff nib. It does not offer much in ways of line variation. Okay, we're going to move on. That was 14 karat. What about 18 karat? This is a very special nib on the LB5. This is a stub and this is an 18K nib. This was made for Danny Trio. These in my mind are some of the most beautiful nib designs in the world. I think they're absolutely stellar. So this would be Danny Trio. This is Mont Blanc Corn Poppy. And for the pen aficionados out there, how is it possible this nib fits? Because it's not supposed to fit in this pen. It came with sailor nibs. William Shakur 3D printed an insert with a feed. It's a clear feed, but it takes on the color of the ink, which is a deep red. Absolutely love it. So that I can use it on this pen, which is obviously magnificent of him, because this has given this pen a whole new purpose. You see, I have it with a cross point nib, which is an extremely broad and wide nib that's not suited for everyday writing always. Sorry. Now, this nib was tuned by Mike Masayama. When I got it, it was extremely dry to the point of it barely writing without pressure. It has been fixed, but I can tell you, so smoothness, yeah, it's smooth because a great nibmeister looked at it. It was very dry. I am not sure I've used an awful lot of, I just have to think, 18 karat gold nibs. I think I have one other one, 18 karat number 8 Bock, also on the drier side of things. This one, what I will say, so I mean smoothness, yeah, that was adjusted by a nibmeister. Wetness, absolutely adjusted by a nibmeister. What I will say about the 18 karat, the biggest difference between the 14 and 18 karats is that this 18 karat is very soft. Now, it's already a stub, so you get that natural line variation, right? Broad downstroke, narrow side stroke. But again, I'm being very careful. With just a little bit of pressure, these tines open up more, much more than the 14K tines did. And yes, this is also an aftermarket nib, so how useful this comparison is, I leave up to you. I can tell you, having used it with the original feed, having used it in the original configuration before it was nibmeistered, it used to be very dry. But now, very, very nice. Biggest difference, objective difference, line variation. A much softer nib, this 18K. Now the next pen we're going to look at is this enormous pen, which holds something like 14 milliliters of ink. It's eyedropper filled. You can also use it as a level. I make a joke. Okay, double broad. This is titanium. And this is, of course, the ultimate ink in the universe, B.R.E. brown. Very pleasant nib that I love tremendously. Super wet, and just, oh, that's really weird, Zed, just incredibly smooth. When I say super wet, I do actually mean super wet. Very, very nice if you enjoy a wetter nib. One of the things that I see people do a lot with titanium, and that I myself have been guilty of in the past, that's why I want to point it out, is they treat them as flex nibs. And I would urge you to be very careful when you do that. The problem with titanium nibs, this one I refuse to put pressure on because I love it so much, I don't want to damage it. The problem with titanium nibs is that they will give you line variation, but you do not get the warning that gold nibs give you of how far you can push them. And I've seen people spring them. Some spring quite easily, depends a bit on how thick they are, I find. Here I have another titanium nib. So people would call this sacrilege. I'm not saying that'd be wrong. Here's a titanium nib with a feed made by, you can guess, William Shakur. This is not an advertisement for William here, but he helped me out with this, he made this, and he helped me out with this. So I just really love William for the very kind assistance he has given me with all these things, sacrificing hours and hours of his time, but it allows me to do these kinds of demonstrations. So here we have a fine titanium nib, also number 8 Bock, just like this one, but this is a fine. And now we're going to see a bit of the difference. I will try. I didn't leave myself much space. I'm going to do my best. So here we have a fine titanium. the point I'm trying to make is, what I have found with a lot of the Bock number 8 nibs is that they have ebonite feeds. Not a lot of, I mean not some of them, all of them have ebonite feeds. What I have found is that some of those feeds run dry very quickly. Now you can carve the ink channel, you can do all kinds of things with ebonite. I don't really like to fiddle with it that much. Here we have a fine nib, Schaefer Red, and the difference made here is that this nib used to run dry. But now with this feed William made for it to replace the ebonite feed, it does very, very well. In fact, I'm on purpose going very fast here. Even with this very fast writing, it just keeps going and going. In fact, it's wetter than I have ever seen this nib be, which I think is very, very pleasant if, again, you like a wet nib, as I happen to do. Now this fine nib, I'll be a bit more generous with than with this one. That line variation I was talking about, it's absolutely there, as you can see there. With this one, I have a little less trouble pushing it. Now what I found with some of those titanium nibs is that some have a lot of snapback, others less so. So I would urge you to be very careful, that was my fault, doing this with a titanium nib. I would not treat them as flex nibs. I've spoken. I just wanted to get that out there. Okay, now, final thing. I promise you one bonus pen and then I'll let you go. This is made by William Shakur. It's getting a bit weird. He made this for me around a number 8 Jowo nib. Now that's interesting because as I understood it, Jowo no longer makes them. What is a good comparison? This, because it's golden gold. This is the Jowo was 18K. It is still a number 8, so 8 millimeter diameter for the feed, right? Because that's what makes number 8. It's a little wider, not in tipping, but I mean in body and shoulders than the other nibs. So the Jowo here on the left and the Bock, you can see the Jowo is a bit stubbier, stockier, I should say, wider shoulders. That's what sets it apart. Now, this is a beautiful triangular pen that William made for me with an insanely comfortable grip section, which I do believe you can purchase these pens from him if you want one, not with the number 8 Jowo nib, but with another nib. Very comfortable pen. If you like a larger pen, look at the ink capacity. It's a piston filler. It's insane. I just want to show you this, okay? So these nibs I have found are also very, well, I mean, these, I've only had one of the Jovos, but this one is very smooth and, again, quite wet, and it does offer, very careful, but it does offer some line variation. If you ever find yourself in an opportunity where you can purchase one of these number 8 Jowo nibs, I absolutely would recommend you do so. It might be a little difficult to find a pen that fits them. You may have to go to a custom pen maker who can make you something, but they're very, very pleasant nibs. This was a, this was an 18K broad, and this is the Jowo. And the ink here is Edelstein, Moonstone. Very nice. So if you enjoy such a thing, then see if you can get one of those. I have no leads in any of them, just to be sure. But if you run into one, get it. So here we have that comparison, the different number 8 nibs. I hope this was useful, and I will gladly see you later. Bye.